I'm on the back deck and I'm looking at a vandalized sliding door. Somebody decided to hit it with a BB gun and it shattered the outer pane but not the inner one, so it still has one, but we need to replace this. So let's go through the process of putting in a new one. I just got the sheet for the patio door. It'll be 72 by 80 inches. It'll be right-handed, meaning that as you're looking at it from the outside, the handle is on the right. And we also have internal blinds with this one. It's also meant for new construction because the replacement door option would have taken 8 weeks to come in. So what I'll do is just cut the nail flange off, and they said that a lot of people do that. It's very common. We also want some shims to make sure our door is nice and plumb. You also might want a product like this, especially if you're doing more of a new construction or if you don't mind removing the siding, because this will give you a nice corner. But if you're replacing it, hopefully they did this the first time. We definitely want some of this flashing tape. It says it's for windows, doors, sheathing panels, and so on. Some people also choose to use some aluminum flashing as well, especially down at the bottom of the patio door. We are going to need some caulk. We want to make sure it's rated for exterior use. This one is for door frames, but we have a choice between paintable water cleanup, so it's latex caulk plus silicone, or 100% silicone, and that one is not going to be paintable, and you're going to need mineral spirits to clean it up. I also got white because the door is white. Let's pick this thing up. So here it is. We have the sliding glass door, internal blinds here. This one's a right-handed one. It's got the screen door included. It opens on the right side of the door as you're looking at it from the outside. And we have one strapped to the roof here. Notice how it comes with these nice handles to help you lift. And I only live about a minute away, so shouldn't be that big of a deal. Let's get it home, get it installed. The first thing I'll do is clean up all the broken glass. Well, I got the bulk of it with a broom and dustpan, and I put it in this bucket. There's quite a bit. Now I'm going to use the vacuum to vacuum up the rest. So we'll see how it does here. I got most of the glass cleaned up now with the vacuum. I broke off all the loose stuff on the door. There's still some in the cracks I'm going to get with a paint stick. You can see how there is some caulk all the way around here, which we are going to take a razor blade and cut through and get rid of that seal so that we can start to take this old door out and make room for the new door. After cutting the caulk along the top, you can see that this spacer here is removable, and you can see the insulation that they put in above the door. I'm also going to take out the screen door here by lifting up on it and then popping out the bottom. On the inside here, I can finally get rid of these blinds because the new slider that we're going to put in has the internal blinds, and so I'll take this down just by unscrewing these areas here, and then I'm going to unscrew everything that I can see on this side and everything that I can see on this side. You can see how flexible this is now. As I push up on it, you can see how I'll be able to remove the doors quite easily. because this is so flexible here on the inside, I moved this door, the slider, into the middle, and then I'm just going to push up on this and then pop it out. I cut the caulk on the inside too, so you can see how this whole thing is kind of loose now. But you'll also see over here how there are some screws right there. There's a screw, and so that's catching. And so we gotta unscrew these screws here. Now that I have those unscrewed, the whole thing pretty much pops right out. I could try to take this door out as well. I took the other slider out just to reduce the weight. The new door is sitting right here, but this should just come out like this now. All that insulation fell, and I'm not really too worried about breaking it off, but there is probably some connections towards the bottom. I ended up popping that other door out just to save some weight, but you can see how it basically can just pop right out now, the whole thing. We just gotta watch the bottom to see what's happening as we pry it out. I thought there might be another screw, so I popped this off, and sure enough, there is another screw right there. That'll do it. So this is what we call open concept. I'm using the paint stick with the vacuum to get the rest of it out of this crack here, which is really important because once I put the new door in, this crack is not really going to be accessible anymore, and I'd like to get the glass out now while I can. This house is approximately 30 years old, and I'm thinking this is probably the original slider. I don't know, but it's at most 30 years old. And you can see they didn't really use any flashing that I can tell. And so in the corners here, it really got some damage. And so they did use some like silicone, but you can see this is basically just the subfloor. And then they glued it, I think, because it was hard to rip it off. But the corners are pretty wet, and there was a lot of water that was coming out. So I'm gonna blow dry that. It's starting to look a little bit better. I'm basically cutting the rotted part out, cutting the old caulk off, so you can see all that stuff I just cut off, and cutting some of the mold patches off with the razor blade as well, and sucking them right up. And then I have the blow dryer. I already blow dried the other side. We'll get this side nice and dry and cut some of that extra caulk off and get that all cleaned up nice. And then once it's all dry and most of the mold is gone, I will spray it quickly with the mold remover chemical, let that dry, and then we can start flashing. This rough opening is 72 inches wide and 81 inches tall. The new door is 71.5 inches wide without the flanges, and 79.5 inches tall without the flanges. And so this piece, this little spacer on the top, I'm going to reuse, and that can just sit right against this nail flange. And when it comes to the left and right side, so these, I'm going to have to cut these off significantly. Yet, as you can see with this old one, there was no flange at all, so it may have been a replacement, I don't know. So I have a brand new razor blade, and I'm going to score it like this all the way down. So now I'll bend it and just basically can tear it right off. And it's just as easy as that. So I removed the nail strips from both sides. I shouldn't need to remove it from the top. I'm also going to cut the bottom flange off, which is attached to this little board with some screws for support. So you can see I did the bottom with the flashing, and now I'm doing the sides, and it's pretty easy. You just stick it on, and then this peels off as you go, and here's the house wrap, and so we'll stick it right on that house wrap, and it should create a nice tight seal all the way down. In order to cut it, I put a paint stick underneath it, and then that way I can cut this without cutting through the water protection. Alright, so it looks like this, and then I just take that paint stick off and we'll get it down the rest of the way. So right in the corner there, I kind of relief cut that, and then I'm going to use 2 smaller pieces to come in and cover it up nicely, and I think that'll work better. Alright, so that's how it turned out in the corner. We'll do the same thing over on this side. So it's all flashed nicely all the way up the sides. I'm going to scrape the rest of the caulk off here. We'll also get as much of the old caulk off as we can from the siding. So the bottom flange is all cut off and the side flanges are cut off. The only thing that's left is the flange on the top, which should be fine. Alright, so the new door is roughly in. I have one of the old doors leaning against it so that it doesn't tip. And we will make sure that everything is plumb and get this thing secure. I popped that old metal spacer in on the top so that that gap is filled nicely. We got to make sure both sides are plumb. As you can see, we're doing pretty good. You can use some shims if you need to. I have my laser level set up, and you can see how at the bottom it's kind of touching there, and then as we go up to the top, we are a little bit off. So this top corner needs to go over that way a little bit. So I'm pre-drilling some holes here, about 4 inches from the bottom, 4 inches from the top, and we will put shims in as needed behind here. That way it doesn't flex more than it's needed. So I cut the shims off first with a razor blade, and then I actually used an angle grinder very carefully just to kind of grind it down so I can get my filler in there. Unfortunately, there's a decent gap on the bottom and it's tight on the top in order to get it perfectly plumb. We also used this screw here and this screw here to be able to adjust the roller height so that when it closes, there's no gap. So when it was first closing, there was a gap here, but it was tight up top. And so by plumbing the door and by adjusting the rollers, we were able to get that perfect. So for now, I have it fastened with 1, 2, 3, 4 screws on each side, and it seems to be really sturdy, and I have the shims behind there as necessary. I also squirted some silicone in as I was screwing it in so that it would be nice and sealed. Now I'm going to inject this 100% waterproof silicone into the gap here and seal this all up perfectly. This gap on the right is completely done now. I ended up using the 100% silicone, and then I used some white rags to wipe my thumb off after I just kind of smeared it and smoothed it out, and it turned out pretty good. Now it's all sealed up with the silicone all the way around, and it's looking pretty good. We have a nice new sliding door. I also have to caulk on the inside, but that's not as big of a deal, so I will do that later. And I am also now getting these magnetic blinds to work, and so we'll get those working real quick. There's this lock here, so I'm just going to pull, So we'll move this up, and the blinds are coming down magically. I love it. Then I can use this one on the top to have some shade or open it. So it's working really good. We have ourselves a new door. I just got to paint up there and finish this area where the old blinds were, and now we have the blinds built into the door. If this video was helpful to you, make sure to smash that like button, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.